Ngwa Mankon kumga ne fru nde mu kimbang ba nga amabi de kumti ba ebe bi ni marangma ewu usakira na ache ambo tata Michael asongwe Chicago ba twemtene kintemta ato nte zonkumbe azaba ba atina tubuga magami ya tata songwe mutingbo na utuma makanga na ache ambo tata to obiye mwamba asa aningela Mankon zinge anyi entambi megano abugichine ngamda mase were ke ni shine kumberla ne tata to obiye tombango tumazane shiwala ni je kumberye iso bogenin bi makanga ana achinga nagam na ba ne ganan tsanin biya ane ekumtiti ba tinye so maka nga mi yambo tata nkimba Minnesota tata Martin Dufro Maryland tata asongwe ay nyambo bugna a Chicago abone ngo sa angela awurna tata tobie alo anye akansa Missouri bugna che ndi metinga tata asongwe abitna tata tobi ne komten mutitseriye bugna me ebi na di amba bugna chinin den internu wula adata tobie achua anuza an gamni meti kige abge teken bitaye awar kan chue ngontu kan gamaye. Fellow Mankon people and Mankon friends, my name is Fru, the son of Nkimbe. This is part 2 of our discussion. As earlier mentioned, we have a Mankon think tank discussion here in America, comprised of Tata Michael Asongwe, Tata Nkimbe Minnesota, Tata Ndefru Martin Maryland, and Tata Toby. I have to correct the pronunciation of our storyteller, Tata Toby, not Toby. And I would like to thank Tata Michael Asongwe from Chicago, who has been the foundation and the pillar in this our discussion. And Tata, thank you so very much. So part 2 will pick up with the discussion as to our narrator, Tata Toby, telling us how he got his information through reading, through word of mouth, storytelling. And I must also assure everyone that all the history that is written about us Africans is and all the researches, this research go back to our colonial masters. And as we listen to these stories, we should ask ourselves, do you think that the colonial master will give a good story about the colonized? Do you think that the Europeans will give a good story about the African? And I was told that he who tells your story glorifies his misdeeds and subjects you to ridicule and inferiority, and that you have to tell your own story. He who controls the media controls the narrative. And this is why the Mankon man and woman, we are telling our story, our own way, and how we see it and be proud of it. Join me in the discussion. Thank you. People will want to know is how did you get this information?
First of all, when I was growing up, before I even went to school, I lived with a man called Zama Akundu. Zama Akundu, he is under Tenyamgo's compound. You know Tenyamgo?
Mm-hmm.
Pantumaza's father's compound. His pa had fought in almost all the wars. He has fought in all the wars. And then, secondly, my father's father, who was called T. Alam, because he was working in the forge. He was making holes and so he was a blacksmith. Let's call him a blacksmith. He gave most of this information to my father, who is a Wasum, T. Alam of Ntamba. A Wasum T. Alam, who was my father's father. My father's name is really Anye, although he eventually succeeded his father and they called him Awasum Chalam. So Awasum Chalam was the guy who used to use Adongo to go and feed the fawn in Babanki. He will hide them in the bush. When he comes, he will get them, climb on them, so that the Germans cannot track his footprints.
Is Babanki what they used to call Alatmambang?
Yes, Alatmambang is Babanki. So he will use that in order that those people could not track his feet, his footprints. And they go with water, they go with food, they go with almost everything to make his life a little more comfortable. And when he was going up to the station, according to my grandfather, when they were going up to the station, the idea of the Germans are very ruthless. They may kill you. The thing is, I have also read 1920, when the Afro came on the throne, one of his wives, we call her, she lived in Awason's compound, Numonto. Numonto, I used to stay with her, take a blanket, catch a lot of sun in it, and take it back to her. And we would sit in the daytime. Well, I wasn't going to school, I was babysitting. And she would give me all the stories. Now, but when I grow up, I read a lot in order to connect the dots. I read from Chilvers. I have read quite a few books that have given me the connecting tissues to make up or to understand how the story was. Because even when I was a kid in the 60s.
Tatasongwe, what do you think?
Thank you, Toby Bianca. That's a wonderful history. The first question I want to ask is, from the books that you read,
yes,
definitely the story that you've told us was not going to be exactly as was in the books that you read. Was there anything that you read that will collaborate or come anywhere closer to what you now are telling us that came from word of mouth?
Okay. Now, the particular part about Mankon, about the king being hidden, how the king was taken care of, there's no way the conquerors can write that part of the history. That part of the history is what is called oral tradition. That's a story passed down from one generation to the other. And now I am telling you guys what has been passed down to me, because there's what is called oral history that has been passed down. Now, this one about Mankon, about the instruments of surrender. Now, if you go into German records, you will see that that was their aim. Their aim was to make people understand that Mankon has been defeated and that it is dominated and no tribe should mess with them anymore. Because that's the only tribe that has made so many tribes to get up and say, hey, we can defeat these people. And so they were going around punishing these tribes. And the only way that they can really put a full stop to it is to show all the tribes, especially in the grasslands, show all the tribes that look at your Mankon. We have defeated them. And they're eating out of our hands right now. If you go into German records, you will find that. And if you read some of the books, they may insinuate that, although they will not completely say it. Now, when I was reading about something written in 1927 in Germany, where Germany was trying to get back its colonies, 1927. And guess whose picture I saw on it? I saw the picture of one of the fonts of Mankon. I think it was in the Afro, with the cuirass and the helmet. And they were saying that this shows that we had a presence in Cameroon. It shows that we had a presence in Cameroon. If there's nothing else, look at this king here. He has our instruments of surrender. So when you take things like that and you put them together, you get the whole picture. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, now today, because there are different versions, so when we look at it today as proud Mankon subjects,
yes,
other versions is that what the Germans gave our king should be celebrated as a bravery. And most narration, when once you say that it wasn't, they don't really agree to it. But we who are fortunate, blessed to be out of Cameroon and seeing how the white man treats the black man, I ask myself a question. Do you really think that the European, the colonizer, decorate a black king to elevate him to the stature of their own king?
Now, the question you should be asking is, if somebody beats you in a fight and then you come back and beat him, do you decorate him?
The answer should be no.
No. The only things you are trying to do is to make his neighbors, is to make the other tribes that are around and looking at them as big heroes, to know that they are now eating out of your hands. They don't have anywhere else to go. And the Europeans have a way of doing it. They give you their military equipment, not the rifle, not the gun that you will use against them. They give you something just to show that you are now under them and that you have lost your sovereignty. Now you're going to collect taxes for them. And you say yes. Now you're going to send us people to come and work in the government roads. You say yes. Okay, you're going to send these people to plantations. And you say yes. And all of you are sitting there and you hear it. The people who used to say, remember this, in 1889, the first World War, the first war with the Germans, what did Angwafo say? The same Angwafo. He said, if you are a man with 2 balls between your legs, come and get 10 ivory and 2 oxen. He said it before Zingraf came with the war. He said, if you are a man, come and get it yourself. And when Zingraf came to the palace, the first person who died in that war was somebody holding the Mankon flag. Not the German flag that was given to him earlier, but the Mankon flag. He saw that Mankon flag and he just flared up. And he shot that man down. Now, this is the same king who is now standing in front of Pavel and saying that I'll do everything you want. Now, do you think Pavel is decorating him or saying that Look at you now.
Did the other kings that came to sort of witness his
Execution.
execution,
Mhm.
what did they think when he was instead sort of decorated?
That is the paradox of the whole thing. The king who is quoted even in books, the king of Bali, said, "We have been with you since you came. We have been with you for 16 years. And you come and give instruments of recognition to the bandit chief. What have I ever gotten from you?" Right in that room, he was really angry and he fled up. Now, another thing is the Mankon people, when the king left the fort, the Baminda fort, he went in with one person. When he left, he had 8 other people, all armed with spears and then guns with him. When he left the fort, they don't know where they came from the fort. And the Germans were congratulating themselves and saying, "Where? A siege, the fort was under siege. And that if we had executed this man, this place would have been burned down." Because when he left and he went just a few meters down where the German road, the Germans made the roads, there were no cars at that time. Those roads were only for horses and for foot travel. People were sliding down from the sides of the road to meet their king. And by the time he reached what is called Maghreb used to be Mankon at that time. Maghreb is where the Baptist mission is, where Cow Street is, and so on. When he reached Maghreb, there was a very big Mankon contingent of armed men waiting, and they started shooting their guns in the air. And the Tabatses said, "Stop, don't do that." And they stopped it. So the Germans were very surprised that we have disgraced this guy, we have humiliated him. But the thing is, Africans did not see it as a defeat. They saw it as strength. They saw it as strength and survival, that we have survived as a group. And that's the thing for Mankon, is to appreciate the fact that they survived the German onslaught as one group. They were never scattered, because the German aim was to scatter them, maybe put them under different people. So they saw it as a survival. And they instead took it as the story did not start today. Even in those days, they were thinking, we have defeated the Germans because we have survived. In the African context, if you kill the village and you don't kill the king, you have not done anything. If the king survives, he still has his men.
Another small follow-up question. At that time, during the 1901 all the way to 1906, particularly in 1906, when the instruments of surrender were executed, what is the feeling of the Mankon people? I know you tried to say that while they were jubilating that they had withstood Zingrab, did they take that and pass it down from generation to generation, that this is what happened and we defeated Germans?
That is all they are saying. The thing is, when Anwafo came down with the instruments of surrender, he did not see it as an achievement, because his status has been reduced to that of a subject of the colonial government. He did not have a kingdom anymore. And he understood it, and the Germans understood it. But the whole thing is, the population could not get their heads. They could not think of the 1901 war. They were only thinking of the very first war. And they were thinking the instruments were given because of that war. And that, if you ask Mankon, they will say, we defeated the Germans, and the Germans surrendered and gave us those instruments.
That's my understanding,
that's the standard explanation.
And the only one I know is that of Zingraf.
That's right. The only one I know too.
But the one that caused the most trouble to us was the one of Pavel. Pavel had learned from Zingraf. He did not want to get in trouble with the German Foreign Office. I'm sure even the surrender of Anwafo II gave him so many feathers in his hat when he went back to the foreign mission.
Is Babanki not the same people who welcome Zingraf and hid away from the Mankon?
No, they did not welcome Zingraf.
Or they hid him somehow?
No, it's Babungo which hid him. Babungo was a vassal state. Babungo is in Dop.
Dop, yes, okay, yes. Yeah.
Babanki, although they are also in Dop, but Babanki is the one, if you are going to what do you call it? Bingo. If you are going to Bingo, you pass through Babanki. That's the Babanki we're talking about. And then Babanki goes all the way up to the hill and goes to the other side of Ndok.
There's a small Babanki and a big Babanki now. Which one is small and which one is big?
Babanki Tungo.
The one which goes all to Tungo, that's it goes up to the stones in the hills. Tungo simply means yeah. So that's what they call Big Babanki.
Okay, the question I will ask also is that nowadays when we read the history of Mankon by contemporary writers,
yes,
and most of their research, they will quote the German archives, library, or anything written by the white man.
yes.
And knowing the history of the white man, do we take
German
that
colonial magazines and
yes, and then they extract what the white man painted of us to say this is our history. And I am questioning myself, and being in this country, and even nowadays, and seeing how the white man talks about the black person, would you really believe what is extracted from European libraries, the German library, because they will quote all these libraries? That's where they did their research.
Let me give you something I have discovered. There's a guy called Dr. Paul Nkui. He's a big man. He has written extensively, especially in the sociology of Com and the grasslands as a whole. Zingraf was not an explorer. He was somebody who has finished his PhD and then he joined the Foreign Office as an explorer because he had experience with some other person who was an explorer in Congo. Since he has spent about 2 years in Congo, the German Foreign Office took him and said, okay, you go and explore Cameroon. So every time he passed through a village, he would go and sit with the king, pretend and do this, and then take out a German flag and hand over to the king and say it's a sign of friendship. He was a colonialist. He was not an explorer. He was not somebody who was just exploring, trying to see the world or trying to pass down knowledge and so on. No. But the thing is, I'm saying, even when I look at Dr. Nkui, he is still calling him an explorer. He was not an explorer. He was anything but an explorer. Because when you think of an explorer, you are just thinking of a very harmless man, right?
Yeah.
And an explorer is like a harmless guy who's just going around, trying to bring
things around.
Yes, his culture. This guy came with an agenda, and we should call him what he was. But if you see all the books written, even by Cameroonians or by foreigners, they will say Zingra was an explorer. An explorer doesn't shoot somebody bearing the flag of Mankon.
He was a mercenary.
An explorer he doesn't lead people to war. That's not an explorer. He was an imperialist.
That's a better word. Yes.
Yes.
When you talk of the people doing research, now they do research, and whatever the people say, they bring it. Now, you think of a typical Mankon man. Why would he think that Zingraf is? I'm not kidding.
Reading European history also is that the Pope crowned emperors in Europe, which shows that the Pope, if you crown a king, the Pope will be above that emperor, right?
Right.
And their history holds that there are two people in Europe who seized the crown from the Pope and crowned themselves, Charlemagne and the Napoleon. So if we can see that amongst the European mentality, you come to Africa for a European king to come and crown our own king, what does that signify to the Europeans or to us? I think we should equally look at it from the point of view that the person that he is imposing its authority over our own.
Right. And what for Mankon say Mazajia. Alimbi, Alin Coxotian right to Benway. They machine quite la backward and second latter to chip from Ben. Candom Joydang Bur, Chay, Candom Joydang Bay, where a chin quarrel Zalan and Temudruna, Tem Yitra, the Latin inquiry, because option I don't say bay. This honor.
So, and was a mob abanganti babbing or bitter banging by the tata. So but it song the winner. La idum tebe gonna share the significance of that. What is the meaning of it to us now? How do we treat that the current history, and if it is true, how do we treat these instruments? That's
the thing is.
That's this question is for everybody. For everybody, yeah.
The thing is, especially we're tina bien gonna ring them sa ntem gonna dire bo kanga we're gonna until the notes gonna log them tan tin tekamje but we're gonna tina celebrate survivor we're gonna tina song we're gonna history ka benga we're gonna song we're gonna history can be example ben ba song na la we're gonna song we're gonna history example we're gonna jina we're gonna baga tina what we call what we call healing in Mankon. But okay, we have to have the healing sessions where
like you get over something.
Right. Tanga bugana tina biana abugana njala. It can be the same about this biamba tina nju. Bugana butum tina ta njala. La benga bugana tina ngama no tena. Bugana te gama bugana kisa wuna ndema wunga be manka. Once ma gama no zamba tina womo. Bugana lok biaba jina njala. Bije shinti no tina zamba bugana song zagana njala. Bugana song ne ta nsu.
Another question, brother. Another question is this: is it time for us now to upset the story of what is going on now, or it is time for us to make sure that what we are now discovering is in books, ready for the generations to come, or for maybe another set of folks to master it?
Okay, I'm going to tell someone about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's about a month ago. I saw an good Tila. This is what we saw. Biamba betumna jama na bibu bufara Mankon senu chiza. Ma sombo ma kusonga bufara song jala za. We're gonna young one year songs gonna jala. Zgana jala I can see the song bugane.
Yes, I agree. My bemte.
Yeah.
And uzamba tino benga. Anya water za abugna be in the ngunu tsena mwana. Put it in books as vividly and as clearly as we can, and make it available for us to read.
Right.
For everyone to read. Now, the idea was, is the convention we are having now, will it be a starting point for us to orally present this to the people? Because in my opinion, honestly, it will freak everybody and the majority of people back at home who understood differently what it was. So it's like, let's ease them in by having this in books and publish or unpublished, I don't mind, but let's have them in books so that we can gradually reel in the people and let them know the truth. Once the younger generation now knows the truth with our input in saying that this is what we discovered, I think it will be more beneficial and less traumatic in their understanding of what has been the case for how many years now? For almost 100 years.
Almost 100 years.
I strongly agree with what Tata Songwe has said, because even this discussion, this video will actually go to, because we are going to disseminate this video, is going to provoke a lot of thought thinking as to the various versions that are out there. It will generate so many questions, and what we are doing now is first to let people start talking about it,
right,
about who we are. As you have rightly said, only we will be able to tell our own story our own way.
Right.
And that our own story can be told by discussion, by communication amongst the Mankon groups all over the world and at home. And this video, this discussion, we are not saying that we have the gospel truth, but we are saying that this is another angle of the discussion, because our story can only be fully told from different angles. And by us. That's true, Tata.
Yes, you have to tell your own story. And with the more to gambo for. And we're mama learning good. We're gonna cheat. Okay. An example for the all right. Mankon, Kabit Babatina on the territory and the map of Mankon. My year and what's a more be able in the tree, Babatina Ganala. Kingdom Wabi as big or even bigger than that of Mankon. But organization, one world class organization. Being a US Ghana, Tina, Benuk Mukumi toy. Mukumatina mo US again Mukumi toy. It's in the town of 40 and better go to the state. Great town of fun. Man go to the state, great town of fun. Go to the state, great town of fun. Number tabanuk for because come on, come bring that idea. To be Asia, to be Europe, bitchy group of Zangwa. Tabenga, Betty, Be and Wati, Be Zamba, Kafo bitter mokiche, Kabitable one, as young one meton. And baby Yabba Zangamo, tabanuk for Miti administration while I'm heavy and steep and deep. I've been for young of New York, Massachusetts, or Delaware, New York, Milwaukee, Tanquatin, one more water Wabbiton. I would have gone Bobo. I believe in Midwest Ghana. We can go to Jingle, the state beat, so we tarka and qua, Mowood, Chedia, and Tanfua Jib and Babbitsman. Before Zoom Mokache, I keep an unseen song, I chedia, I chedia one, but I can jam out me beton, young Minja Zamba Mother. All right, I need to, I need a lot of Sinagana. Malana, my Ganabo organization, but so people Nan Zen Zambabo, Nankon. Nana, I was hoping that if Mankon is like that, we'll be proper. Even to be better organized again and say, we're gonna teach it annual day. Babgana again, I would so when Babgana again, August. We're gonna go, we're gonna lock the tips. The tip, Munta, Dog de Son, Buntu. Kangwa tong ntang ala kabe wamba china bu akwenye mboma la kabe ke bu bena kabuna jago no abasonne but bu ti gana ngab mazak ku wamba adi na flute la lawa INC ndi bomba batina high school ndi ngab zak man ku wala kinge state kindi obata ndi azamba bu ngomta ndi azamba bu jinuta nanang jala bo nufuna mba na tini kan ki nuta ji ki ne ba mabati ba mo lo nfu mo nan kwata wa bo ti wungu di wa 2 hours 5 hours dowa anu zata ngene mdi no nufuna ta ngene mdi ba mba an zam nan bon to ni ti futa abu organizer ka ka be to ko ba no tenwa organizer tan be state bene abu ti to nufu tan wo che nufuzi tan projet ba mba ti nufuzi te bitima Ibugam want to can oh, Mowat and dear Mowar, Chadi, Akiro, Ati,
Butongo.
Bikiton Tanford. If you think Mokachi, as one young bed, I said, Madame one met no. Can what I'm afraid. I've been on record to whatever for young ones, Mamba Tinama La. And Bambi Tree Baby and I'm hoping that before Nkazamawa. Kabamba Nana spend was much except Congo. There is what I call a Congo and Bafang. Obey Mwamba and Tan Fubuga Kongo. Tabing Benja Ambana organization one festival one. Bugam Mumbang City so high school nana. At it, Zones go. Chudet was una. Or that Bombardan see Bambakan see respect a lot when see culture will be very strong. Kakanga idea. Was a Manka Gaman Nananga American or they been being flew the lot one go to Tongole.
Originally, Marichin, you must that month at December. A bear time for don't kunga kung the weasel. I mean, I'm see one zuma. Nizoni began this. Makara botany, a beshui, befrog, you Matona been getting for one by a yen
Gang, Kabi for
and Tanuk for.
And a bit Tanuk for Ambati Nedi wa. I'm back looking I'm not looking at the FAZ and Tifana,
yeah. This organization when is going to, it was going to be organized side by side our Makuda, or is about time to dismantle Makuda?